Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Angelo Di Paola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. All right, guys, I am your host, Butch Theory, here again this week. And before we jump into the report, we got a really cool opportunity for you. We have partnered with AFCO, and they are offering all of our listeners a free sun protection mask with any purchase of AFCO products. They make a ton of great products for all types of anglers. All you have to do to get the coupon code is text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Again, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767 to subscribe to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, guys, we have a great Alabama saltwater fishing report lined up for you this week. But first, let's take a few minutes to check out a few of this week's great sponsors. This week's Alabama saltwater fishing report is brought to you by Sportsman's Marine. Sportsman's Marine has an extensive tackle selection of anything that local anglers need for saltwater and freshwater fishing, as well as boating accessories. They have the largest selection of the slick lure in Mobile and Baldwin County. They have AFCO, Pelagic, and Saltwater Fanatics apparel along with other local brands. Go check out their Edgewater, Wellcraft, and Vecsey lines of boats. They offer engine services with 5-star Yamaha and Mercury mechanics. Also, if you're looking for a street legal electric golf cart, go check out their Atric golf carts. Sportsman's Marine on Highway 98, and they also have a downtown location next to Mr. Jean's Beans in Fairhope, Alabama. And also brought to you by Killer Dock. As anglers, we put a lot of time, money, and passion into fishing, but most of us do not have a fish cleaning station that we are proud of. Many of us are suffering from dock dysfunction. A rod and table with rusty metal, this is just no good. But the dock enhancement that we've all been waiting for is finally here. Killer Dock uses marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. Killer Dock combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit killerdock.com to see more. All right, folks, I'm your host, Butch Theory. Welcome back to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. We have a great show lined up for you this week. We have a special co-host this week. We got Captain King Marchand from Dauphin Island, Alabama with the Lady Ann. What you say, Captain King?
Oh man, everything's good over here.
Welcome back to the show, man. You haven't been on this side of the mic yet. You're always giving us the report.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it, man. Glad to have you on. For the listeners that don't know you, just kind of tell us a little bit about King and kind of how you got to be the captain and owner of the Lady Ann.
Well, I mean, it's kind of fell into it really. When I was a kid, 16 years old, I was working for your dad, Cap Mike.
Golly, that seems like a long time ago.
I know, and I worked for him. That's pretty much all I've ever done. The only job I've ever had was working on that boat, and I worked for him for 10 years. Finally bought the boat 2 years ago, and then the rest is
history.
The rest is history. Yeah,
that's right, man. I know you do a great job. I know you catch a lot of fish. Every time somebody gets off the boat, they're always happy. You got happy customers, and I enjoy getting your reports because you get fired up, and I can just tell that you like it and you're good at it, and that it comes through in the recording for sure.
Oh yeah, you gotta love it. There's no doubt. It's a passion. It's not just a job.
That's a fact. Whenever you spend that much time on the water and that much time in the wheelhouse, you gotta love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the Lady Ann, man. As you mentioned, you work for Dad. I can remember in 1997, I can remember bringing that boat home from Panama City.
Yeah. Well, the boat, I mean, you know just as much about it as I do, but it's probably more than I do. But the boat was built in Panama City. It's a 57-foot custom boat. It was made specifically for charter fishing. I mean, it was built from the ground up for fishing. And man, it's just an awesome boat. We do all kinds of stuff. I do 4-hour trips for Spanish. We do 3-day trips for tunas. We just do it all, according to the seasons and what's biting. And thankfully we're able to go every day and be able to keep up with what's happening out there so that I can give my customers the best experience because I have the best intel about that day or what to expect that day.
Yeah. That's a big old boat too, man. She rides really well. It's got a big old V.
Oh man, everybody in the world would tell y'all their boat's the best and blah, blah, blah. But this boat is actually, it's a first class
like
boat.
You say, she's built for it.
It's built for fishing. It's made for fishing.
What's your favorite, man? What's your favorite thing to go after, you think?
Man, people ask me that question all the time. And it's just according to the time of year. Like in the spring, I love sheephead fishing because my customers are so happy, when they gang up on the rigs out there. Snapper season is always a given. I enjoy snapper season. It's people are always happy. It's fun. Big old fish. They good eating
fun
when they
to pull on. They're not that hard to catch usually. You know what I mean? You don't have to super work for them sometimes.
Yeah, you just get to just drop down and just get tight on one, And my personal, probably my favorite is probably the tuna trips, the offshore trips, the 2 and 3 day trips, just because you get to spend so much time out there. And if you're spending that much time out there, you're going to see something cool.
Oh, you never know what it's going to be either.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You don't know what's going to happen out there. And I mean, you could go out there and have what I would consider to be a bad trip. Most people may consider it a good trip, but it's just, it's so different. And it racks your brain because you have to think about it and work at it. And it's not just something that anybody just goes up there and does.
Pull up to a spot and drop down and catch
Yeah.
it.
Most people think, yeah, you pull up to a rig and we're going to drop down, we're going to catch it. No, it's not like that. I mean, you got to work hard at it.
Oh, yeah. It's a grind for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
This time of year is probably my favorite time to get out there if the weather's cooperating. I love September and October for that offshore stuff.
Yeah. There's more dolphin coming in. The wahoo have been coming in. The tuna fishing gets to be more consistent because the water is consistently better and prettier and more, chlorophyll, more everything in it.
Yeah.
This time of year is just a better time of year. And plus, I mean, not aside from the fishing, it's nice to just be out there. We've been seeing whale sharks and the weather's been good, nice and cool. You're not sweating.
Definitely glad it's cooled off a little bit. That's been very nice.
Yeah, especially these past couple of days. It's been
giving me a little taste of fall. The worst part about this little fall is you got to go back to sweating your, off here in probably a couple of days.
Yeah.
I hadn't looked at the weather, but I'm sure it's going to get hot again.
Oh, it's going to be a tease. I ain't no doubt about that.
Always.
It's going to be a tease.
Always, man. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get our first report for the day, man. We're going to hop in with my buddy Joe Baya over at the Northwest Florida Fishing Report and get our offshore report.
What's going on, Butch?
Oh, man, not that much. It's been a while since you and I have done a joint offshore report. Looking forward to it. What you say, Angelo?
Oh, man, I'm living the dream, guys. I'm just living the dream.
We got quite the crowd in here this week. It's going to be a fun report. I know you guys got King Marchand hosting with you this week. King, what do you think, man? You ready to kick this report off?
Yeah, for sure, man. It's my first time doing it, and I'm just ready to listen to what people got to say. I'm ready to ask some questions.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward. I always enjoy having two good captains on the report and being able to ask each other questions. So I'm looking forward to hearing what questions you've got for DeLynn, and we're all going to get a lot smarter today when it comes to offshore fishing. Well, Captain DeLynn, where you been this week, man? I know you run out of Orange Beach, but you find yourself off the Emerald Coast quite a bit, off the coast of Alabama a good bit as well. Which way you been heading this week?
I've been staying off Alabama mostly, but I have some friends that are going further east, and but mostly I've been in Alabama. I've been staying home here lately and harassing my own fish and not poaching anybody else's. So that's what I've been doing.
Well, one of the things I know about you from talking to you and from having to fish with you, that you really focus on live bait and making sure you got a lot of good live baits every time you go. What's that situation like right now? Is bait hard to come by?
Believe it or not, even with all the rain we've had and all the dirty water, bait fishing has been really good, but it's not so much right on the beach for me. We stopped at Sea Buoy last Saturday, probably caught 30, 40 of those little butterbean hardtails. We went out to another, 35, 40 feet of water and got in the herrings and cigar minnows pretty good. But then we didn't have any bigger baits, so we were going to stop at the reef balls. And on the way out, we stopped in actually 85 feet of water and was catching giant cigar minnows. So we were catching everything: cigar minnows, hardtails, herrings, butterbean hardtails. It was really, really good. So I think just a little further offshore in the dirty water, but it's been really good.
I know the bait situation's a little bit different over here on Dauphin Island than it is over there, Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area. What are you guys seeing, King?
Man, we've been seeing just we have more structure to fish for bait, I think, than they do.
True.
We've got the rigs and we've got the ships and we've got all the buoys on the way out. But we've been seeing a lot of like DeLynn saying, a lot of them little tiny hardtails. And for us, Amber Jackson season right now, we've been targeting those, and we want the bigger ones. It's just what we've been trying to get. And it's kind of, you pull up to a rig or a spot and you get what you get as far as bait. And we just have not been getting those good amberjack size hardtails that we're looking for. But everything else has been good. Water's been pretty, baits, all the other baits been fine. It's just not exactly what we're looking for that specific species
Magnums.
of fish. Yeah.
We got some magnums in that 85 feet of water the other day. That's the only place we caught our big ones. And they were anywhere from the hand-sized hardtails up to about 2 pounds. There were some big ones. So, but we were in 85 feet of water before we caught them.
DeLynn, I feel like we go over this all the time, but you listed off like 6 different baits. And like those herring, I mean, you can't hardly mix them in with anything else. Like, what are you putting into what live wells? How are you separating out your baits?
Okay, I have 3 live wells on this particular boat, but we normally only use 2. And if you get a mixture of herrings and cigar minnows, they do okay. But if you get mostly cigar minnows and you throw a few herrings in there, it will kill them graveyard dead usually. So I try to keep them separated. Herrings are just sensitive. They're like me, they're a little sensitive, I guess. But other than that, everything else will mix fine. Your pinfish will settle down at the bottom. Your cigar minnows will come up off the bottom. So they kind of, do their own place in the live well. But herrings, if you have an extra well and you only have a few, you probably want to put them by themselves because they're pretty sensitive. Also, if you have a dark live well, you got to have some kind of light for herrings, especially if it's rough or you don't have a pressurized live well, because it will kill them. If it's a big wash machine there, thread fin herrings and just regular herrings is what I call them, sardines or whatever people call them. You've got to have some kind of light, a clear lid or a light in there, because if it's rough and it's not pressurized, it'll kill 85% of them.
Yeah, and DeLynn, so as far as the fishing goes, your fishing to me is only as good as your bait. And when you talk about fishing in this 85 foot of water, I know it's different than what we're fishing out here out of Alabama. What kind of structures are you fishing on? I know it's probably stuff that you've caught bait on for years, but is it like you fishing like pyramids and stuff, or what to you is holding that bait or better than other places if you're scouting out for bait at that time?
Yeah, I was just going over to the reef balls, some of the public barges. I don't like to fish 85 foot for bait, but it is what it is. But yeah, the barges, we were actually fishing the 12-mile buoy the other day. It was hubbed up with bait, all you wanted. But those reef balls right next to it are good. Also, you catch rubies and different things. The little 3-mile ship out in front of Orange Beach, it's got hardtails and such on it. So just any kind of structure. Just keep moving, kind of like fishing. Just keep moving until you find them.
You say the reef balls, and I'm familiar with it. And I'm sure some of the listeners are unfamiliar with it too. What is? I've never heard that term.
Well, I call them reef balls. Those little pyramids they put out there for fishing. Those little limestone balls they put out, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So, but any kind of structure, it doesn't matter.
DeLynn, you were talking about having the light in the live well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is interesting. Do you think those herrings are they slamming into the sides of the live well if it's too dark in there? Is that why you think that helps?
I think so. I really think so. Discovered it years ago when I was a kid, and I've done it ever since. And I actually went out on a big 65 Viking a couple of times. His live well was in the floor, and he's like, put as many herrings as you can there because they'll all be dead when we get out there, so we'll at least have some dead bait. And I said, well, put a light in there. Well, it doesn't have a light in there. We didn't have a swordfish light. So like week or two, month or two, whatever later, we go and I bring a light. And we get offshore and we open it up, and 98% of them are just like you just caught them. They're perfect. He goes, I never dreamed of such a thing. I said, yeah, for herrings, you have to have some kind of light in there. And I like a pressurized live well. If you can get a pressurized live well, that's the way to go. Especially on these boats nowadays that run so fast, it's like a big washing machine. You're just not beating them up. Like I said, just as good as your bait. So if your bait's not good, then it is what it is. But I like when I get them offshore, you can't hardly catch them, and you can't hardly hold on to them because they're ready to jump out of your hand. They're gonna go down there and pick a fight. He may not want to eat him, but if he's running around, he's like a cat chasing a mouse. He wants to kill him. Man, I like a good live, frisky bait.
That's a great tip, man. And there's nothing more frustrating than spending a lot of time putting together a good live well of bait. You're really excited about that. And then you get out to where you want to fish and 80% of it's dead, and it seems like when that happens, you always get bit immediately on the few live baits you had, and then you're out, before you really have a chance to get on the bite good. So that's a great tip. Kind of talking about amberjacks and moving out a little bit further. When you've got that diversity of bait that you're talking about, like really big cigar minnows and really big hardtails and thread fins and Spanish sardines and lots of these different types of what a lot of people like to call turbo baits, when you get out and you start fishing for amberjacks, do you prioritize one bait over the other, or do you like to put down a mix and see what the amberjack want that day? What have you been finding right now that those amberjack are keyed up on bait wise? If
you have the opportunity to have a mix, I do. Every good team needs a coach or a sergeant or whatever you want to call me. But when I get out there, I'm like, okay, you put down a hardtail, you put down a herring, you put down a pinfish, you put down a cigar minnow, and then whatever they bite, then we can switch up. But I've seen days where it doesn't matter whatsoever, and I've seen baits where they only eat herrings or they only eat pinfish or whatever. And if everybody runs a hardtail when you get there, we're going to jackfish, everybody run a hardtail. You get no bites, like, they're not biting, let's go somewhere else. Well, you just missed a great opportunity because you might have run a herring and they jumped all over it. I know last year we were catching them on pinfish, which is not my favorite bait at all, but they were eating little hand-sized white snappers. Every jack we pulled up was just full of them. And you could run a pinfish and it was immediate on. As soon as you locked it up, you were on every single time. And if everybody didn't run a different bait, we would have never known that, because they wouldn't eat hardtails of all things. They wouldn't eat herrings. They only wanted pinfish. So if I can get a variety of bait, everybody run a different bait. And if they're not biting, they're just not biting. But You could miss a lot of good opportunities if you don't fish different baits. Or if everybody's fishing one bait and everybody switches up to another bait, you're going to be there for an hour trying to figure out if they're biting or not.
Now, DeLynn, on the amberjack fishing, we're still talking about that. You get them biting or whatever, and I know, like for us, it seems like they'll bite for a minute, and I don't know if they figure out what's going on or what happens. So, what do you do in order to keep that bite consistently? So, we'll try to keep one down in the water or whatever. We'll try to keep them hooked up to keep like a domino effect. You always want to have them hooked up because once they stop, they stop.
It's like a frenzy. You want to keep them fired up.
Yeah. So do you do the same thing? Do y'all try to keep them fired up and it's a hustle. It's a grind. You're trying to just keep them coming like you're commercial fishing almost. But
and there's always that one guy that's going to reel it up before you're ready.
Yeah. And then also when the bite stops for the amberjacks, when would you try it again? Do you go back there, on your way back home, or what is, I'm just kind of wondering what's your strategy on that?
That's a great question, actually. That's very important, more than people think. Because a lot of times I'm a one-man show. So we get tangled up and we drift off. I can't hold the boat, bait hooks. So, yeah, I do lose the bite often. It just frustrates me and just no end. So, yeah, try to keep them biting. And a lot of times if they're kind of leader shy or whatever, you can get them biting. You can drift off 400 or 500 feet. I've been way, way, way off the wreck and look down and just following those fish. And you can run a light leader then on 40 or 50-pound tests and catch 50-pounders because they're so far away from the wreck. So, yeah, very, very, very important. Keep them going. If you have to start off with one guy and let him get his fish up 50 feet and then run another bait, whatever you got to do it, absolutely, for sure, do it that way. Because I tell people it's like this. You go out in the yard, you're throwing the ball for your dog, and he's just having a blast. But then you go sit on the porch, and he sits next to you. You throw the ball, and he looks like you're like, I'm done. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Yeah.
You better catch them while they're biting, because when they're in that frenzy, they're going nuts. But I don't know if they get tired or they figure it out or what, and they're done. I have went back by there a few hours later, but with limited success. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So catch them as hard and fast as you can. You can only catch one per person, so everybody man up, buck up, put your big boy boots on, and get your fish. Because when they quit, they may not start back.
And that's like kind of what we'll do. We'll have two lines, just two, because I don't want to get too many of them on. And we'll have one of them sitting in the live well ready. So the moment that fish gets halfway up, that other bait's going down to try to keep the frenzy started up.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I feel like that,
I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. And it can be it can be within seconds too. 3-4 seconds is whether you catch the difference between catching 2 and the difference between catching 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep. 100%. You can do that on an oil rig too. Pull up there and hook your first one, and they want to pull him off, reel him in, and pull back up there, and then they quit. Well, pull him just a little bit. You got him. Now run a bait, And
it's funny.
You'll come out there with that one, and you're on again, and you're on again. You're on again. So, okay, we got a limit. We're done.
You talked about how the jacks will be even off of the spot or whatever. And I know that when we go up to a spot, and I try to go up on the upcurrent side, but it takes, if you do your homework before you drop your baits and circle the spot and try to find, you can find exactly where they're at on that structure. But you talked about them coming up, 30 yards away from the actual structure. I remember last year we fished a big oil rig, and we sitting there with no bites, no nothing. And then in front of the boat, probably, I'm talking about 100 yards in front of the boat, this big school of jacks came up. I mean, I've seen them on the surface. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, oh my God, we think you're fishing right next to the structure. Like, no, I should have done my homework and drove around and looked for them first before we ever put a bait in the water, and, lost a couple of baits that we only had a couple, and lost, the good baits that we had. But.
Yeah, that's a great tip in itself.
DeLynn, you're talking about keeping them fired up. And I know one of the things I always struggle with as a deckhand was we'd get a fish on, and if it's a big amberjack, he's pulling a lot of line. The angler is usually kind of a little bit freaking out. They're like, well, I can't leave him down or else I'm going to, he's going to take all the line I got here. And so they'll start working that fish up towards the top, really trying to get him. And a lot of times they, like you said, they get him in before you really wanted to get them in. You sent me some pictures this week of some really nice amberjack. I mean, 60 to 70 pound class fish. What do you do in terms of tackle when you're going after jacks and that you've got really big fish around, so that you can be confident that you're not going to lose a fish because you're trying to keep him down? That's the thing that I think a lot of people panic on. They're like, well, we got this one on. We don't want to lose this one. Let's get this one in. And they can really lose the bite that way. So kind of take me through your tackle setup.
So here's what I do. Big tip. Especially on center consoles, you want to get one on one side of the boat and one on the other, and that's fine. But jacks run around so much, well, then you get tangled, you lose that fish, and you don't get another fish on, you lose the bite. So put both of them either on the very back of the boat or the very front of the boat or on the same side of the boat. That way, if they do cross, you just go rod tip to rod tip. The knot runs up to the tip. You just unwrap it one time and you're fishing again. So if you go on one side of the boat and on the other side of the boat and they cross under the boat, you can't get them unwrapped. So I try to put them a lot of times like both people in the bow. I have a center console now, so I put both people in the bow. And when I hook one up, I start backing off the wreck a little bit. I got another guy fishing. If he wraps around him, he just takes his tip, unwraps him, takes all of 3 seconds. He's unwrapped, he's fishing again, and life is good. So if you get opposite sides of the boat, it's hard to unwrap them. So I would get either on the same side of the boat or on the bow of the boat, and that way you're fishing the whole time and nobody's wrapped up and everybody's fishing.
I've often wondered about that with the center consoles. We're used to fishing off sport fish style boats, and you've got that whole back transom to really work fish around and do what you're talking about. And
The AJ shuffle.
yeah, the amberjack shuffle. That's right. So you use the bow like a sport fish uses the stern. That is a great tip. Thinking about, you mentioned, being able to get those fish off the wreck and, scale down your leader material and that kind of thing. Where do you like to start? I mean, if I can catch them on 200-pound tests, that's what I want to use. Are you having to finesse and scale down at all right now to get the bite, or are they pretty willing to participate?
Yeah, most articles you read in the books, they use the lightest line, the lightest swivel, the lightest hook you can get away with. I say exact opposite. If he'll bite logging chain, we're going to fish him with logging chain. So, let's just quit fooling around and say like it is. But, yeah, you do have to fool around and get that happy medium. If I'm strictly jack fishing, 80 or 100-pound test is a good place to start. You can go up or down from there. Not so much have to go up a lot of times. Just get off the wreck and put it on the bottom. He'll come out there and bite it. So if he's going to bite, he's going to bite. But yeah, if you have to go lighter than 80, it gets pretty sketchy.
One of the reasons that we, there's 3 things to fishing. You hook the fish, you fight the fish, and then you land the fish. The biggest things with jacks with us is that we lose them because they get down in the structure. I'd say 90% of the fish that we lose is because the line's off right up and they got us down in the structure. And I got a lot of people that they want to free fall the bait down there. As for when you see your jacks on your fish finder, let's say you're fishing a structure's 100 foot, it sticks up to 60 foot. How high in the water column are you fishing your baits? Because I like to give a little wiggle room between it. That way he can take some line and pull, and then we have some room to work with before he gets down there. Do you find it similar with y'all, or do y'all have a certain method of making sure that you're at the right depth when you're doing that?
Yeah, here's what I do, especially only fishing a couple of rods. So just like you're talking about, go find your fish wherever they might be on the wreck and just watch them on your fish finder. Watch your bait and your sinker going down on your fish finder. When it gets 10 or 15 feet above the fish, just stop it to them. Stop right there. You're right above them. And they'll come up a little bit, and now you're not fishing below them. You're not fishing too close to the structure. So I do that a lot. But also get off to the side of it. You don't have to get right on top of it. Get off to the side, and you can get further away from it than you think and lay it on the bottom, and that jack will come out there and eat it. And a grouper will too. But yeah, just watch it. Just watch it. I've so many times I was like, go, stop right there. Stop right there. Bam. He ate it right there. As soon as you stopped it in the space. So
as far as finding these fish, we've been doing this for a while, and we got go-to spots that we're going to go to that we know that holds them. If you're somebody new out there and you're, let's just say, strictly off of looking at your fish finder, is there something on your fish finder that you can say like, hey, like this is my amberjacks, or is there, I know you may have a bigger blob or whatever, but is there certain like trends to it where you say, hey, you can definitely say, hey, I think I'm marking amberjacks on this spot. Let me send down a big live bait.
Just the bigger marks. I'm assuming they're jacks. Generally, if they're schooled up and they're up above the structure, they're either big jacks or big snappers. They're probably not groupers, but I won't say they're not. But they're probably not. So the bigger the marks, you can see, you can look down the bottom and go, okay, well, those are smaller fish, and those are probably snapper and triggerfish. And these big old giant worms right here on my screen, that's either a shark or a big old giant fixing to kick my butt.
Yeah. I know that I've talked to a couple of divers before. I've never dove myself personally, but they say the amberjacks will kind of come up and come down. Like they move more, vertically in the water column than what you would think. And I've actually noticed that myself and look at the fish finder, like you will see the marks come up and down, and that will make me think, okay, that's the amberjacks. We'll drop down sometimes, we'll catch them, and I'll have a new spot that we're catching jacks on. And I didn't know if you noticed that or not, but it may just be coincidence too.
If you see fish going up and down and just kind of weaving in and out on your fish finder, looks like they're weaving a sweater down there, those fish are generally active and those fish are feeding. If they're all just swimming along like a school of mullet, just all together, and they're not really going up and down, and a lot of times they're not feeding and they're not going to bite. But if they're just going nuts, just all over your screen, you don't know where to fish, then those fish are active and they're probably feeding.
That makes sense.
That's good too.
DeLynn, I have two questions. Are you fishing like artificial structures? Are you fishing natural bottom? And then a little bit, you were talking about 80-pound tests, 100-pound tests. Like, what's your rod and reel setup? Is that like your main line or your leader material? Just curious.
Okay, those are great questions. Actually, I do both. I fish artificial and I fish natural bottom. I think jacks like big stuff, either big and tall or big and spread out. So a big, tall, barge or whatever, it's big, or even natural bottom that's spread out. It can be flat and not very much relief, but there'll be jacks on it sometimes. So they like big and tall, obviously, oil rigs, ships, whatever. But they just like big stuff. I've caught them on chicken coops. We all have, but I don't go there looking for them. So anything big and spread out, big piece of natural bottom, big rock, or a big ship, that's where I go looking for them. So my setup is here's my setup and my thinking. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So 99% of the time, here's my setup. I've got a Talica 25 with 100-pound braid, 30 foot of 100-pound top shot, and a 100-pound leader. So you're only strong as your weakest link. Why do I want to go with a 150-pound leader if I've only got a 100-pound braid? If he'll bite a 150-pound leader, I'm going to use a 150-pound braid. So whatever he'll bite. But now I can go the other way, say they're just not biting 100. I can drop down, back my drag off, and go with a 60-pound leader and just fish a long leader, because mostly they're seeing the leader anyway. So whatever they'll bite, that's how we're going to fish them. So if they'll bite 200-pound tests, give them 200-pound test. I'm not beyond it, but a lot of times they just won't. But yeah, my stuff is usually the same all the way through. Same braid, same top shot, same leader.
DeLynn, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, and I think you and I kind of shared that we both like a little bit more action in a bottom rod. I personally like a little bit more limber rod than a lot of people do. It seems like a lot of people go out there with a 2x4 and don't want really any action out of that rod. I really like that flexibility in that rod, and I like to have my drag locked down. I feel like that rod can act as somewhat of a drag and, can prevent some of those big head shakes and real strong runs from having a hook pull. What do you like if we're talking about amberjack in terms of a rod? I mean, do you like a more limber rod, or you really want it to be pretty stout?
No, I like a rod that bends. I like a lot of action in my rod. I don't want it to be, overpowered by the line. It needs to handle the line. So if you're using a 100-pound line, you need a rod that is got all it wants and it's pull and drag with a 100-pound line. So, but I like a rod that bends. If the rod tips in the water, I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me at all. But I want a rod that bends, especially with all the braid we're using nowadays. Mono, it wasn't as important. But if you're using a stiff rod and braid, there's no give, and you pull a lot of hooks. You just rip hooks out and do all kinds of bad stuff. So I'm with you. I like a pretty limber rod. It's just softer. It seems like when you're reeling down, it's a good soft hook set, and the fish bite down, hold on till it's too late. But if it's a hard rod and you jerk or rock with the wave a little bit, he spits it out or hooks where you're not supposed to hook him and pulls out later. So I like a rod that bends. A lot of my rods, like I said, the tips will be down in the water. And people think, oh, that rod's just too wimpy. No, it's not for me. That's what I prefer. But whatever you like, whatever works for you.
What kind of rod are you using? Are you using like a Shimano or something custom built?
No, I'm not. I get my rods all over, several different ones. But the ones I'm really using right now are just, they're made for half hitch tackle. I'll give a shameless plug out to my buddy Tim, but they're $100. They're not expensive. They're solid fiberglass rods, so they're a little bit heavy. But man, they just got action from the reel seat all the way to the tip, and you can't hardly break them. And for $99, you can't beat that.
And you don't have to have a rod that you have to feel like, when you flying a fish and you want something that you can really feel the
Super
bite.
sensitive, right?
With jacks, you almost want a rod that
bite.
you don't want to feel the bite,
Right.
so that people don't try to pull up on him too early.
That's true. That's a good point too.
Yeah, because the more
I tell people, especially fishing in deep water, I say, stop trying to feel the bite and watch the bite. You'll see the bite.
Mm-hmm.
And on my rods, because they bend, you'll see a lot of times, if you're using a 6-foot leader, well, your bait's not always at the end of that 6-foot leader when he bites. So it might be 2 foot away from the sinker when he bites. And you don't even know it. So he just inhaled your bait and he starts swimming off. Well, all of a sudden your rod tips just starts getting heavy. You see it just getting lower and lower to the water. Well, you never really felt the bite because he's just swimming along. He's already ate it. His life is good. He had breakfast. He's happy. So you don't necessarily feel the bite every time, but you can see it. And so I tell everybody, stop trying to feel it, just see it. And especially in 300 feet of water, you're going to see the bite. Hold your rod tip still and watch your tip of your pole. And even scamps, they'll bite it, and all of a sudden you'll see it just like it's just getting heavy, like you're adding weight to the end of the pole. And well, he's on there. You just start reeling. So, yeah, I like a rod that bends, and you can see the bite. And I tell them never try to feel the bite unless you're in shallow water.
DeLynn, growing up, we used to just fish for big jacks, and we'd fish like a 50 wad and 100-pound mono.
Broomsticks,
and
giants.
a broomstick.
No
and
doubt.
like we would fish like a whole bonita or anything. Do you, I mean, you're talking, you guys were catching 60 and 70-pound jacks, and you said you broke some bigger fish off. From listening to what you caught as bait and what you were putting in the boat and your tackle setup, do you ever go to a bigger bait, or do you think that bigger bait is unnecessary? It's just, hey, you got to find the big fish.
Yeah, I do everything. I do small baits, big baits. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's a bonita or a ladyfish or a mullet or a pinfish. I use them all, and just whatever, let the fish tell me what they're biting. So, yeah, use a little bit of everything. If you want to use back in the day when we had the big live wells over in Destin, we'd catch those little bullet bonitas, and we called them amberjack seeking missiles, and they were only about 12 inches long, and they were amazing amberjack baits. So, yeah, whatever they'll bite, I'll use anything. I don't care. If it wiggles and they'll bite it, I have no shame in my game.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you said, DeLynn, like the bigger baits can also cancel out the smaller fish. You can, and we're
kind of weed out the smaller ones.
We're charter fishing. We're trying to catch numbers. We're trying to get limits. We're trying to just make everybody happy, and everybody's happy with a 30-pound fish. Honestly, most people are. Just like yesterday, we were sitting there catching jacks on the spot. We happened to hook a bonita on the line. I said, guys, y'all send him down. I seen him down. Never got a bite on him because I guess maybe the spot was just nothing but 30-pounders.
Right.
But
that grande wasn't there.
Yeah, but everybody's sitting watching the rod tip, and I don't care if it's a 20-pounder or a 70-pounder. I want to put that number check mark on the box.
That's right. The problem is now running big baits or sharks are so bad that even the big hardtails we were running this the other day, the sharks were eating them. We just have to keep moving. It's pretty tough sometimes, but if there's no sharks around, I don't care. If they'll bite it, I'll run it.
Well, DeLynn, we're getting short on time, so I think we just wrote the book on amberjack fishing to some extent, or you did rather. I'm soaking it all up. But what about the grouper fishing, man? I mean, when I think about DeLynn, I think about grouper. And has it been any good out there?
Group fishing's got kind of tough. They're only in certain places right now, so I personally haven't been targeting them. I've been getting my jacks and my snapper because they're only on certain places. So I'll tell you that, guys. Don't get frustrated if you're not catching them. Keep moving, but they're just not biting real well right now. Even those long 80, 90-mile runs I do sometimes, catch, just big hauls of grouper, they're not there right now. They're not biting. So if you can switch gears to something else, I would. I have not been targeting them. We had one little scamp the other day. We caught him snapper fishing on accident. So I have not even run a grouper bait down the last couple of weeks. So
that makes me feel better, DeLynn, because we've been struggling with it too. This year, I've had the best young grouper I ever had.
Y'all were smashing them early in the year.
We were catching 20. I had a trip. We caught 34 scamp on a trip. And like now I'm getting disappointed. We're catching 2 and 3. And I'm like, I'm not even stopping for it, man. It's just, and now that everything else is in season, it's worth fishing for something else. But they frustrated me. We had 4 minutes. I said, oh man, we're the king of grouper now. And then now we got humbled again because we just ain't getting them like we were.
That's part of it.
Y'all caught them all. You and DeLynn out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Messing them all up all
They're
over the
still
Gulf.
around. Call me after the show. I'll tell you where to go.
All right.
There's still some around. You can still catch them, but there's only in certain places right now.
Well, DeLynn, man, that's a great report. Really, a lot of great knowledge there on amberjacks, on bait for amberjacks, and I love breaking down, an individual fishery like that, and really trying to think about everything that you think about when you're on the water. It's hard to bring that all onto a podcast sometimes, but I think you did a really good job with it today, and we appreciate having you on, and always appreciate your reports. Hope you stay safe out there, and we'll be going to be looking forward to the next time.
Well, I sure appreciate it, guys. I really enjoy helping guys out and giving back. So anytime I can help anybody ever, just let me know. I'll be glad to help.
All right, man. That was some good stuff from Captain DeLynn, Captain King. Really enjoyed you chiming in there. I know you got a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
AJ's, man, It's weird where those scamps, like, where'd they go? They moving around, or I wonder what the deal is.
I don't know. Need to get some sea labbers out there and tell us what's going on.
That's right.
I just like that we had DeLynn and King on at the same time, and like listen to those two guys, like Professor out on amberjacks was cool.
Yeah,
It's a lot of knowledge.
It's a cool platform, man, to be able to get folks that are spending a couple hundred days a year on the water and have done that for years and years and years and years. And, you think about most people, probably most of the people that are listening right now, they might not have had a couple hundred days on the water in their whole lifetime. And to be able to get two people to compare notes, that was fun to watch y'all talk and share your knowledge and learn from each other. It was really cool. Well, guys, we're going to get the rest of this Northwest Florida fishing report. I know y'all got to get back to the Alabama saltwater fishing
Yes,
report.
sir.
Enjoyed having you on with us.
Enjoyed it as well, man. We'll talk to y'all next time. All right, guys, that was a great offshore report from Captain DeLynn Sigler over at Orange Beach, Alabama. Let's take a quick break and check out a few of this week's great sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Hilton Real-Time Navigator. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. Make the choice that professional captains all over the Gulf make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. And also brought to you by Bucks Island. They have new pontoon boats, bass boats, bow riders, and aluminum boats for sale. They provide boat service on all kinds of boats, even if they weren't purchased from Bucks. Visit them at 4500 Highway 77 in Southside, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-442-2588. All right, Captain King, we're going to head down and get our onshore report for this side of the bay this week. Let's talk to Captain Richard Rutland with Cold-Blooded Fishing. What you say, Cap Blood?
What up, Butch? What up, King Mac? How y'all doing, ho?
What you doing there, Richard?
Hey, I'm not the onshore report, by the way. I'm the inshore report. Well,
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Let somebody. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I
no
appreciate
problem.
that.
Yeah, no problem.
I tell you what, today was absolutely just gorgeous. Had just really felt like the first day of fall almost. I know we're probably still in summer and hurricane season and everything else. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the H word on here, but
we do not cuss. This is a family friendly podcast.
But man, it was so nice and cool this morning and a little bit breezy. I don't even think I broke a sweat until I started washing the boat on this hot asphalt here a little while ago.
Yep, I believe it.
It is absolutely glorious out right now. And it showed for a Wednesday. There's a lot of folks in the water this morning, considering where I went. I saw probably a dozen boats this morning in between Portersville and Grand Bay. And that's a lot of boats for during the week in what I'd call like the low season for fishing.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever I left the house this morning, it was 62 degrees to go catch some flounders with Dad down there on Dauphin Island. It was 62. It was great. Had the windows down. It was awesome.
For sure, man.
There was a bunch of people on the water even Monday. Me, you, and Captain Bobby got to get out Monday. And man, it was for a Monday. We were running into traffic everywhere.
It was. I think a lot of that probably, and like what I saw today too, is just kind of the wind direction, having these northeast and northwest wind that we've had this week. That's bringing us this cool air down here and making it feel so good out. Really protects the north side of that Mississippi Sound from the bridge, kind of down to from the Dauphin Island Bridge, kind of down to the state line, to the Alabama-Mississippi state line. Keeps a lot of that protected. So, and we're kind of coming out of a nip tide the past couple of days, getting some high water in the morning and it falling out real hard. And man, it just had everything going today. There's a bunch of bird schools going, like those laughing gulls down on the shrimp, jumping around. Lots of pogies all over the place. The pelicans diving and whatnot. There's a ton of life, and it really just feels like fall. In fall, I always think about just being like a plethora of bait all over the place, and the fish kind of going nuts, gorging themselves for the winter that's going to come. I feel like that's what a lot of what goes on in the fall, and why it's always so fruitful during this time of year. And you're really starting to see that a lot. Just everywhere we stopped, we caught fish. They were real hungry, and like I said, you just saw bait all over the place, shrimp skipping all over across the water and birds working and whatnot. So really fun time of year.
Yeah, Richard, so I know we got these good fall vibes coming up. Everything's feeling good, and you start to see the pumpkins out now. As far as like these different wind directions and all, does that? So I know you probably think about it the night before you go to bed. You think, okay, where am I going to fish tomorrow? What am I going to do? You wake up in the morning and the wind's blowing 15 knots out of the north. Does that change your game plan and throw you off that day, or like, how can you take that and use it to your, or maybe even use it to your advantage? I don't know.
Yeah, I hear people fuss about the wind all the time, King, and inshore. Unlike offshore, inshore, you can really use the wind to your advantage a lot. And I use the wind to my advantage every trip I am. Like when I go set up on a spot where I think there's some fish or I'm seeing some signs of some fish, I always set up upwind of where I'm going to go and let the wind blow me into where I think the fish are, So I'm not using the big motor. I'm not using the trolling motor a whole lot, maybe just to steer me a little bit. Make little subtle movements here or there and whatnot. But yeah, to answer your question, sometimes you do get that curveball thrown at you of, hey, I thought I was going to have a southeast wind and I've got a northeast wind today. How do I overcome that? But it's what as well as I do with all the technology that we have these days with different weather apps and whatnot. You generally have a pretty good idea what it's going to do the day before, and that's usually where I start. Before I put my boat in the water, I'm looking really a day or two ahead and the night before and the morning of. I mean, I call audibles all the time. They'll say northeast wind and it's blowing north and northwest or something like that, and I'm looking at it at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're meeting in an hour and a half. And sometimes I'll call my clients up an hour before we're going to meet and say, hey, we need to make a move. We need to move over here, or we need to go out of East Foul River versus West Foul River because we got a west wind today, and whatnot. I'm definitely what you'd call a conditions fisherman when it comes to the inshore side of things. I'm always going to fish conditions. I'm always going to try to set myself up on a leeward bank where I got the wind helping me versus like being a spot fisherman and saying, okay, man, I knew they were at the northeast Exxon rig, but I got a incoming tide and a north wind. That's not going to work. You know what I mean? So you gotta fish the conditions.
Yeah, and that makes sense too, because I mean, just as far as the fish may even be there, but as far as the casting and it being rough, and your cork goes under the waves, and your customers, they can't see it for 2 or 3 seconds, and they may even had a bite by then, and they don't even know. So just like you said, the conditions is everything.
It is. Like I said, I preach that all the time. I take a lot of local folks fishing that are from our area that have boats, just want to go and learn how to do things, and that's something I always preach and try to show people. Like, hey, look, current's coming this way, wind's going that way. This is how I'm gonna set this up right here, And I'm never gonna go fish, inshore fishing, man. Like as far as shallow water fishing goes, you're never going to catch a bunch of fish in a bunch of chopped up water. You know what I mean? So you got to find some protection from an island or a bank or something like that, and really think about and use your tools. As far as, like I said, the technology goes, I mean, I can look at my phone and tell you exactly where the tide is, what it's doing, and I know what flats I can go fish when. And this, that, and the other based on water levels and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot to think about there, but yeah.
There is a lot to think about there, man. And one thing I really enjoy about fishing with you and Captain Bobby, like on Monday, is you're good about it too, but Captain Bobby was the captain on Monday with us. It was high tide on Friday whenever I fished with him. We had a lot of water. And then whenever I fished with you guys on Monday, it was much lower. He's really good about walking you through why he's doing what he's doing and where he's doing it and the reasons for that. So just talking about kind of the water height a little bit, kind of walk us through what Captain Bobby was talking about Monday. He's like, oh yeah, that over there, that's supposed to be dry land, or it wasn't supposed to be dry land. How does that affect you on your day to day, or you just have to go?
Those are like I tell you, man, with inshore fishing, it's all about the little tiny details that can make you a hero or a zero. And kind of going back to Monday when we were fishing, when we pulled up down there in that area we were fishing around that island, we could see a little bit of land exposed, a sandbar exposed for a little while. And we could see it getting bigger and bigger while we were sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
Within like the 30, 45 minutes we were sitting there. And then before you knew it, we made a loop around the other side of the island, and then boom, we couldn't see it anymore. It told us the water was coming up. And the fish are doing the same thing. They're either receding off the flat or coming up on the flat, But I religiously look at the NOAA Tides and Currents website. You have a great view of what's going on in Mobile Bay through that. And Butch, I'll send this to you when we get done, and you can post it on the podcast. Post it as a link on there. But we have a great view of seeing what the tide's doing in our area. There's a Dauphin Island gauge. There's a West Fowl River gauge. There's a Bayou La Battery gauge. There's an East Fowl River gauge.
I think there's one on
There's
Dog,
a Dog
too.
River gauge.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a great one on Dog River. You've got right up there at Arlington Flat at the Coast Guard Station, Chickasaw Bogue. Like you can really see what the tide's doing, whether it's really flooding in real hard, whether it's falling out real hard. And I religiously look at that, and I've made mental notes over the years to know whether I have enough water on a flat to fish. I know whether I can go and fish like just PV, we'll just say PV flat down at Dauphin Island right there on the east side of the bridge. On the west side of the bridge, coming onto the island on the south side of the hump there. I know that's a high water spot for me. So I'm like a 1.5 to 2 foot is what I can fish out of the boat there, and so I know that. And you start making those little mental notes, and it's really going to take you a lot farther, with your success, making those little small mental notes like, hey, I've got enough water to float here,
right,
and actually get the fish to bite and whatnot. So that's one tool that, like I said, I probably looked at it like 6 times today on the boat and on a 6-hour trip, checking it hourly, kind of like the weather during a hurricane.
Man, one of the things about Alabama, the inshore fishing in Alabama is just a beautiful thing. And we have so much area to cover, so much
Super
land,
cool
as
area.
opposed to going like Panama City, they have the couple little canals, So like, as far as the tide, aside from it being like, hey, I can fish this area or I can't fish it because of dry land. When you're looking at these NOAA charts and the wind and all that, how do you take all these things into perspective to be able to dictate where you want to fish that specific day? Because I know it's going to be different every single day. Every morning and every afternoon is going to be different. So when you're looking at your charts and all, what clicks in your head say, okay, I'm going to go over, to Porterfield Bay, or I'm going to go up Mobile Bay, or, or is it just a feeling that you get, or why? Why? I'm trying, because I'm not an inshore fisherman. I don't really.
I'm still learning too. Yeah, for sure.
Well, King, it's funny you said that. Is it a feeling you get? And I swear I say it at least 3 or 4 times a week, and I know I always say it like whenever I give a seminar to a group of folks for an inshore seminar or whatnot. Fishing is definitely a feeling. To me, It's a feeling. And I can't tell you, people ask me all the time, like when we leave the dock, we leave the boat ramp. People say, hey, Cat, where are we going today? And I'm like, well, I really don't know. I'll tell you when we get there. You know what I mean? And it's, I literally kind of ease along, and I kind of have an idea. Like I said, I use the protection, using the wind, trying to fish protection as it goes to the wind and whatnot is number 1 most of the time. Tide level's number 2. And then when I get to an area, man, you can just look and read the water. And you can tell, man, this is a fishy place or it's not a fishy place. It's a gut. After a while, it just becomes a gut feeling. You know what I mean? Like, hey, should I spend $10,000 right here or should I not? Kind of like making a business deal almost, and you kind of get that gut feeling based on looking at it. Am I seeing bird activity? Am I seeing a bunch of mullet jump? Is there any pogies around flipping? You start kind of adding up all those things, and then it really kind of starts to come together. And a lot of that is experience, man. You have got to go to know. You absolutely have. If you want to be good at inshore fishing,
you got to go
you've got to go a bunch, and you got to strike out a bunch. I'm gonna tell you what. On my scouting days, when I got a day where I'm not running a charter and I go do a little scouting, do a little homework, man, I learn as much on a scouting day not catching a single fish as the days that I go and catch 100,000.
Yeah.
You know, but because, like I said, you got to go to know kind of deal. And of course, things like this, like what we're doing right now, our fishing report, is going to help everybody point everybody in the right direction and whatnot. But man, it definitely, fishing is definitely a feeling, man. I can tell you when I get in there, you're like, oh yeah, we about to get them right here. You know, you start seeing trout flicks, pop up here and there. A couple birds, you know, dive here, dive there. You know, you can just tell, man, there's a lot of life here. You know, something's going on.
Yeah, and I mean, as a guide too, you're limited. You can't really. You have a set amount of time. You've got, you know, which you've got to produce in a small chunk of time.
Oh, yeah.
Like a 6-hour trip, like they think it's a lot. It's really not. You know, with lines to the water, there's not much time in there. But I guess what I want to get to, like, how often, like on a charter, are you fishing new places that you haven't fished, and like, why would you? Because I know me personally, I'm a terrible inshore fisherman, but I just go to the same old places that we've caught them in the past, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
No problem with me
And
too.
as you're riding out, you're looking like, oh man, this point may have them, this point may have them. And I don't know, like as a guide, like, do you have that feeling and say, okay, well, I'm gonna try this point for a few minutes, or how often, or do you always just kind of like go?
You know, King, I'm chuckling in my mind thinking about what you're asking me there about catching fish in new places and whatnot. Sometimes there are things that absolutely jump off the page at you inshore and say, hey, look, man, hey, I'm over here. There's fish here, you know, hey, we're over here tearing it up, you know, come on in and join the party, you know. And I mean, probably like I would say a handful of trips over the course of a year do I catch fish in a brand new spot that I've never fished before. And I'm always laughing the whole time. My customers do say, man, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Why are you laughing right now? Why do you keep chuckling? You know, and I'm like, man, I've never caught fish here before.
I've just
in my
found
life,
these
you
fish,
know,
right.
or I haven't caught a fish here in 3 years, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
So that don't happen a whole lot. But there again, I'm on the water every day. You know what I mean? And every day builds on the next one. You know what I mean?
You're fishing
you know,
for tomorrow every day.
Yeah, you know, and like today on the way back, I ran from West Fowl down to Grand Bay and back. And on the way back, I saw about 3 different places when I was running back where I saw like perfect textbook trout flicks peeling off a point on my way back. And I was like, mental note. Yep, there, and there. That looks like stuff that's worthy to try. But of course, there again, you got to have the right conditions to come back and fish those things, you know, right water level, right wind, right tide level, or right tide movement and whatnot, you know. So there's a lot that kind of goes into it.
Definitely, man. You mentioned a few minutes ago that the fish were hungry. I mean, we caught, or y'all kind of switched over a little bit. I caught fish on top water until 10 a.m. the other day, over some grass and over some shell. Is it still a very productive shallow water bite right now? Or are you having to audible from that some, or what you've been doing?
No, heck no, man. If I had to tell you right now, man, I'd probably bet money I probably won't fish deep water until winter from here on out. I'll probably be in shallow water from here. As far as like inshore fishing goes, like trout, like catching speckled trout.
And what do you call in shallow water,
You probably
Richard?
won't see, you know, 6 foot of water or less. You won't see me in like 10, 12, 14 foot of water, slip corking live shrimp or anything like that. I'm gonna most likely from here on to, you know, through the fall and into the winter, I'll be shallow water fishing for the most part. I think fish are a lot easier to catch in shallow water because you don't have the whole water column to deal with. You know, you don't have to figure out in 10 foot of water, are they at like, you know, 6 foot or 8 foot, or are they down on the bottom or wherever,
Right.
you know, like they're a lot easier to catch. And then just with the whole bait aspect, there's so many shrimp around right now. Like they're down in the sound, they're all the way up the bay, all the way up to the causeway and back. You get these big falling tides right now that we're gonna have, and that's gonna stir everything up. And that's just how fall goes. You know, the fish are gonna be on the shrimp. So finding some of that falling water out of a lot of these tributaries, especially around the major tidal rivers like Fowl River, Dog River, you know, kind of even getting close to the causeway and whatnot, you're going to find where where a lot of this water's drained now there on these falling tides, and it's going to move those shrimp, and most of the time they're going to show themselves pretty easily with the bird activity or slicking up real good and whatnot. And that's kind of what I was kind of getting into when we were talking a little bit before we started recording here, was going into fall. That's kind of where I'm going to start targeting a lot of my areas. Is going to be around a lot of those drainage areas. You know, it doesn't have to be much either. You know, it doesn't have to be one of these bigger tidal systems like Dog River. That's a real deep, real deep system right there at the marina where a lot of water falls out into the bay. You know, it can be some of the smaller creeks on some higher tides and whatnot. But that's where a lot of these fish are going to start staging themselves up. And as we get into the fall and the water temperatures really start to cool down, they're going to push on into some of these areas and should make for easy pickings.
Man, I feel like we say it every year about the first cold snap. We all start freaking out about when the fish going, the transition, when they're going to be in the river.
Oh yeah, we're like a long ways away from the first cold snap. But something we've talked about in this show before in the past, something I never really thought about until 2 or 3 years ago when Captain Patrick brought it up, was the time of day.
Yeah.
Definitely
getting shorter right now.
Yeah. How long the day is starting to shorten up. It was like literally 3 weeks ago, I was leaving at 5:30 in the morning, and now I'm leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's still not even light enough to fish at 6 o'clock in the morning. I ran out my guys were there at 10 minutes before 6, and we were pulling out at 6. And we ran out in the pitch black dark at 6 o'clock this morning, with a clear sky, no clouds, anything like that, So you can definitely tell the time of day is starting to shorten up. And the fish know that too, which is kind of crazy. Like I said, I never even thought about that before Patrick said something about that. And they know that fall's coming on. I feel like that's why all this bait's going crazy, all the bird schools and everything else, everybody's feeling the pinch of fall coming along, and it's about to start happening. Don't start going and fishing up in the rivers yet by any means, but fishing around those areas where the rivers are, where the fish are going to go eventually, is going to be a real good start.
Yep, and that brings me to my next question, man. This weekend I was just looking at the forecast. We're going to be down in the low 70s again throughout the weekend, and I would assume that temperature of the water is going to start dropping some. Do you have any tips for our listeners kind of going into the weekend? I haven't looked at the moon or anything like that, but anything you would try and key in on or avoid this weekend?
Man, I wouldn't really start paying attention to your water temperature stuff until we're getting into October, November time frame. That's when you're going to see the water temperature start to drop, is when you start to get those first couple, 3, 4 cold fronts. You start to see those fish push hard, but they're going to stage up, outside some of those areas where they're going to go here in the next coming weeks. I'm sure you can go out to the rigs right now in the middle of the bay and slip cork up a couple limits of speckled trout out there, of course, because the water temperature is still in what we call the summertime range,
right?
Where they should be living out there. So to me, it's kind of the best of all worlds. You know what I mean? You still got a good deep water bite. The shallow water bite's getting better every day. So you kind of got the best of both worlds right there, as far as that's concerned.
That to me is kind of cool, as you said. I never thought about that. You think of summertime, you're fishing, I'm going to call it offshore. We're going to call it fishing out of the bays and whatnot. And then wintertime, you're fishing up into the rivers. But to fish in this transition period that we're in between, summer and or fall and winter, or summer and fall, I guess, to be able to fish the transition periods between the bays and the rivers, fishing the mouths of the rivers, or fishing, those certain areas and targeting on that. And I've never actually thought about that. You just think of one of the other. I'm going to fish the river. I'm going to fish.
Well, it gets even more complicated than that too. Whenever you start getting lower water temperatures and you start getting these fronts, whenever it starts getting colder, and then it's, it's 50 and then it's 70 the next day, and those fish have to adjust for a couple of days. Then you start really scratching your head.
And then it gets confusing.
Well, but 50 degrees is not getting cold either, though. 50 degrees is 50 degrees to water temperature as far as fish are concerned, it's like me blowing in your ear. Okay.
Right.
Like, yeah, it feels a little cold and I might tickle you a little bit like normal, you know what I mean? But that's not like being like, oh man, hey man, it's cold.
Right.
It's cold. You know what I mean? I'm about to go
Right.
get hungry and eat, push up this river. You know what I mean? Like getting cold, like it really cooling off. It's like when it gets down in those 30 degree mark.
Really changes the
for
water temperature.
For a night or two or three. That's when you're really looking for a big movement of the fish. You know, it is definitely a transition period, like what we're talking about, when it's starting to slightly cool down, like getting to the 60s and then the 50s, then the 40s. You know, that's going to kind of get the fish moving in the right direction, but it's not going to they're not going to fire off until it like gets cold, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about the showing up springtime deal, and that's why I'm trying to kind of steer people away from thinking about going in rivers or anything by this point. There probably are some resident fish in the rivers, but the big numbers are not going to show up until it like gets cold. You know what I
Right.
mean? They're going to stage up on the outside of all these deals, you know. So let's just think about like West Fowl River, you know what I mean? Like you run out of Delta Port and go to West Fowl River, you've got all this all over the place, like running down like towards Murder Point and Barron Point, Goose Bayou and Cat Island and Marsh Island. The fish are going to stage up in those areas before they kind of pull into West Fowl and then go in and live in West Fowl in the winters. That's how you need to think about it.
Yeah.
You know, is that as it cools off, as the days get shorter and there's less light out, they start to feel all that and they start to pull in there. And so does the bait. You can see it in that. You can see that happen. Too. Like Portersville Bay is like full of freaking pogies right now, full of shrimp, all kinds of stuff, and it's all trying to pull into those areas before you know it.
Yeah.
Richard, do you ever fish in a school of bait? If you see like a big school of pogies or something, have you ever had success with that?
Like when I think about pogies, like in shallow water and whatnot, I think about like gaff tops, jack crevallias, bull reds, things like that. As far as like speckled trout goes, I don't really think about fishing that type of bird school. And you can usually tell what's under which kind of bird. You know, if you see terns or the politician birds or pelicans diving, it's usually going to be pogies. If it's those laughing gulls, like your what I call Walmart birds, your laughing gulls.
Yep.
If they're diving down, that's shrimp. You know, those guys are eating shrimp. But if it's your bigger birds, like I said, your politician birds or your pelicans, those are on pogies. And I kind of differentiate the two. You know, Walmart birds have got trout under them, most likely, and then your pelicans and politicians feeding on pogies, they're gonna have like gaff tops, bull reds, jack crevallias.
Man, that's so funny you say that. Being able to that's next level stuff right there. Being able to develop what birds are holding what bait. So with hunting, I mean, we do that stuff. Crows, and blue jays, they're usually a larva and something like that. But to be able to say like, okay, these are pelicans, or these are terns, or these are the Walmart birds out there, to know like this is shrimp or pogies, that's pretty awesome.
It's good information,
that is
for sure.
awesome.
And I'm trying to learn. I say it all the time on here. I'm running my boat. I'm a horrible ADD captain. I'm like, oh, birds, run over here, catch nothing. Oh, birds, run over there, catch nothing. It looks fishy, right? So I want to fish it, but yeah, it's not always the right answer.
Because like you said, there's always the little keys like that can really, really help you, which most people are going to bypass when they're going by that.
Oh yeah,
they're not even going to pay any attention to it.
And like when it comes to your your laughing gulls, like what I'm calling Walmart birds, you'll know, like Captain Bobby calls it he'll say, man, it looked like a damn Alfred Hitchcock movie over there. Like the bird. There used to be a movie called The Birds. Back in the day where they attack people. But that's what it looks like. You'll see just a wad of birds like attacking one little area that's as big as your house. Kind of area. And you see those laughing gulls. You'll hear them, of course. Attacking one little area. That's always trout for the most part. Like it's either going to be speckled trout or white trout all mixed in together. Sometimes, especially this year, there are so many white trout around right now. It's not even funny. We didn't go anywhere today and not catch white trout today, of all sizes, all the way from like croaker size all the way up to like pound and a half, almost 2 pounders, like ones I would throw in the box today. But yeah, that's what you want to look for here coming the next couple of weeks, or definitely those laughing gulls getting down, because like King, like you're kind of saying that we figured that out kind of deal, but that's the truth. I tell people all the time on trips, man, I can look at the bird and I can tell you what's under them for the most part.
That's just time on the water, man. That's just
Yeah.
experience right there.
That's all it is. Being out there every day.
Yeah, man, that's a great report, Captain Richard. We always enjoy hearing from you, man. If folks want to book a trip with you, what's the best way to get in contact?
Man, get up with me on coldbloodedfishing.com. Got my contact info. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Can't miss us. Bookings for October are looking slim for anybody that's looking to book a trip. We're going into November right now, so
good deal.
I think I don't have anything available till the 3rd week in November. So if anybody's looking to get on a fall fishing trip, better get on it.
Heck yeah.
That's funny you say that, man. People are always looking for who you gotta go fishing with. You want to go with the guy who's booked up the most.
That's
'cause
fact.
He's going to be the best.
That's a fact.
Ain't no
That's
doubt.
it.
That's a fact. Well, man, we appreciate the report.
Yep, King and Butch, I appreciate talking to y'all and having y'all interview me here this afternoon, man. And y'all hope y'all have a good rest of the show.
Appreciate
Always
it, man.
good, Captain Blood. Appreciate it.
Talk to you next time, Cap. Be safe out there. Always good to hear the inshore report from Captain Richard Rutland with Cold Blooded Fishing. That segment was brought to you by Fish Bites. Since 1999, Car Specialty Baits, Inc. has been busy revolutionizing the fishing industry with their game-changing brand of baits and lures called Fish Bites. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits at fishbites.com. And also brought to you by MB Ranch King. MB Ranch King hunting blinds and feeders are built to last right here in the USA. With durability and convenience in mind, MB Ranch King's maintenance-free blinds are constructed with high-grade steel and come in a variety of sizes to meet any hunter's needs. They offer high-quality, easy-to-use corn and protein feeders that can be filled with both feet on the ground. Call Kevin today for more info or a quote at 205-807-2937. MB Ranch King, built in the pursuit of perfection. All right, Captain King, let's head on down to Orange Beach, Alabama. Let's see what Chris Vecsey is up to over at Sam's Bait and Tackle. Welcome back to the show, Chris. How we doing, Cap?
We're doing great today.
What you been doing, man? I know you've been doing some onshore and some inshore. Let's start inshore. What the beach? How was it? Was the beach good to you?
Beach has been decent. The weeds are horrendous right now. We've got normally we call it June grass, but it's kind of just been summer grass, and now it's summer fall grass.
It's
still
September.
there.
It's not June anymore.
Yeah, it's not June anymore. It doesn't know that though.
It's unfortunate.
But yeah, I mean, it's still very fishable though. A lot of guys have been coming in the store and talking about how oh man, it's unfishable out there. There's plenty of spots in between the grass that you can fish. The water's clearing up a little bit. That's helping. I'm pretty much just fishing artificials and fly tackle. So I haven't put any set rigs out. Now, if you do some set fishing, obviously your weight and your bait and everything's just sitting there on the bottom. It's going to collect some weeds if it sits there long enough, especially if you have good current. But I mean, that's just part of it. There's good fishing to be had if you're willing to deal with a little bit of grass.
So what are you doing? You're just walking the beach looking for life, or like on the beach right now? What are you looking for, Chris?
Pretty much my normal routine is get on the beach, start hopping from trough to trough, little deep pockets close to the beach. I'm almost never even getting in the water. Most of the time I'm pretty much dry other than that little bit that laps up at my feet. But a lot of the big trout in particular, the big trout have been really tight to the beach. In fact, at like a couple mornings I've been going and just bringing a fly rod. Should tell you where those trout have been. I mean, I'm catching a lot of this fish within 25 to 40 feet of the water line. And not just trout, big Spanish mackerel, bluefish, of course, some reds, as we start to cool off, some pompano will start filling into those troughs too, but haven't really gotten any pompano here lately, but lots of trout. So you could get on the beach and throw twitch baits, top water some mornings. Although the bluefish right now, if you get out on the beach and start throwing poppers right now, the bluefish will absolutely destroy you. And they're fun too. Just hard to get into the trout if the blues are real thick.
And that's, I was kind of wondering, Chris, what are you actually targeting there? Because you think about beach fishing, there's so many different kinds of fishing. I mean, you can be in the same spot fishing differently, catching different
Catch
stuff.
10 different species.
You can be fishing with fish bites on the bottom. You can be targeting trout. So when you're going on the beach, like, what are you targeting in that day? And I know it's dependent on the currents and the tides and all that kind of stuff, but like that morning, tomorrow morning, you're walking on the beach, what fish are you going to target and why?
take the bycatch of a redfish or a flounder or something like that. There's just something about hunting those bigger trout on the beach that always just kind of gets to me.
Yeah, that's definitely fun. Walking the beach, throwing plugs, man. Yeah, it's interesting to see that there's a fall run of pompano that comes through. What usually kicks that off? Is it the time of the year? Is it the time of what, or is it the water temperature? What kicks off that fall pompano run?
It's usually that temperature threshold. When we get back down to like 78, when we hit 78 and below, you're going to see, another, bigger push of those pompano. There's kind of a magic temperature on pompano in general. I've always said it, as long as water is 63, 64 degrees and above, you can catch them with regularity. But if I had to pick like a window, it's pretty much like 65 to 75 is like your magic window on pompano. And so if we can get back into the low 70s, that's usually a little bit later, usually October, if anything, when we start getting back into the mid to low 70s. But we will be catching some good numbers by the end of this month.
And you think that they're there and just not biting during the summertime of the year, or
we catch a lot of them out deeper.
I think they move through.
No, it's the migration.
Yeah. A lot of them will actually, if you talk to some divers, they'll tell you they see them at random intervals out on the rigs offshore. And I've caught plenty of good pompano in the middle of the summer, usually fishing much, much deeper. But in general, I have to think that most of them are either deeper, and then a lot of them will actually be inshore. Every now and then I pick one up on a hard bait while I'm trout fishing grass flats, troughs off the intercoastal. And it's always a nice bonus. Sometimes though, once you find a little pattern, like areas they're holding, you can go back inshore and you can hit those fish. And sometimes I'll catch them all the way into December inshore. I
can definitely remember several years talking to the Bama Beach Bum and talking about Christmas pompano. So it's funny to just kind of see how the pattern, evolves through the years.
Yeah. If we have a mild winter where the water temperatures on the beach do not get below, realistically, really cross below 62 degrees and stay there very long, there's plenty of winters where we catch them all winter, and then as long as the water temps don't get scorching hot in the summer, we'll catch them in good numbers all summer. We've had quite a few customers, have had pretty good luck with pompanos through this summer. I would say it's probably better on average than typical, but we did get some pretty high water temperatures, and that did slow it down a lot.
And Chris, what makes you pick a spot on the beach? I always think of the spot within the spot. So you're fishing in a spot that's 100 yards wide or whatever. What's going to make you the beach? You're just going to run for miles. So you think, oh, that's a good place. That's a good place. And you may actually fish and not catch anything. Is there something that keys you off as you're there on a fresh morning that makes you say, okay, I need to go here? You may
gotta be fish there.
Yeah. You may flunk out. You may not.
Yeah. Any kind of current variable, when I can find those, you get, first thing I do is I want to get down on the water's edge. I want to look straight down the beach. And you'll see those points that come out, and then they're usually followed by a scalloped edge, where it comes back in like a little bowl. Anywhere you have that, you're going to have current sweeping across that point. You're usually going to have water, waves that are not only catching that current when it comes around the point, but then it's breaking on the inside of that bowl. So you've got a little bit of current relief, and you've got wave action that's scouring the beach there. So you've got a break from current and food. Those are always going to be top spots for pretty much any game fish on the beach. And then, of course, rip currents. Rip currents are kind of a no-brainer. Anywhere where you find that hard washout, getting carried offshore, it's carrying bait and food and stuff, further out. You're always going to have a congregation of a lot of time pompano. Big trout will be on the outskirts of it. They usually do not like to sit right in the middle of the current, though. Pompano will sit right in the middle of the current of a washout. Trout, redfish, and stuff like that, a lot of time are going to be on the outskirts where the current's kind of minimal. They don't want to work any harder than they have to most of the time.
Yeah, Dylan's always talking about, flounder, kind of the same thing. He calls it soft structure, which I like. That makes sense to me. You got humps and you got dips and cuts. What Chris is calling a rip is, like a cut in the beach where a wave's breaking, then it pushes back out.
Yeah.
Those ambush feeders sit right there and feed.
Yep, pretty much. And that's the flounder will sit right in the middle of that.
Oh, yeah.
They don't mind the current. Once they're stuck to the bottom, the current doesn't really affect them that much. And they're such active predators. They don't mind, kind of breaking from the bottom to grab something. I'm trying to remember who it was a few years back, another guide, we were talking about flounder in general. And I mentioned flounder hitting top waters, and they were looking at me like I was crazy. And it's like, if you're working a top water in shallow water, 3 or even 4 feet, and a flounder can hear that thing and see the silhouette of it, they will absolutely shoot up from the bottom to grab that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And usually they go airborne on it.
And just because there's a lot of current too doesn't mean that like it makes it physically hard to fish to be able to feel your bite and get your bait out there. But like, and it's kind of personally it shies me away from fishing. In a lot
Yeah,
of
but that
current.
flounder don't care.
But
He's
they're
just chilling on the
there.
bottom.
Yeah, you got
yeah.
you got to try it.
Like Dad this morning, we were running out. And
Absolutely.
Dad said, "There's no flounder here. I can't see him on the bottom machine."
Yeah.
Obviously, he was being silly, but it's it's a good point. Kind of hard to find, but man,
I joke around with people all the time when we're out, like when we're out sword fishing in particular, and I'll be looking at the bottom, and they'll, I'll be saying, "Oh, there's a little bait there." They'll be, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "Look, see, this is bait. You see this little dot right here?" They're like, "Yeah." I'll be like, "Yeah, that's a flounder." They're like, "A flounder?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's a flounder." And you're in 1,600 feet of water, and it usually takes them a minute. I'll start smiling. They'll be like, "You're full of it."
I need to get that transducer if you're honing in on that.
Yeah. One day you're gonna put
Honing on the
That's
flag.
right. That's right. What about inshore, man? I know you've been doing some redfish stuff. You've been in the kayak. You've been in the skiff. What you been doing inshore?
A little bit of both, mostly on the skiff. And I'll tell you right now, the inshore bite from pretty much like Pensacola, all the way to here, Orange Beach, and even at Gulf Shores, the inshore bite is absolutely awesome. There's a lot of guys that'll tell you that it's not, but the redfish bite in particular is very, very good. If you go fishing right now and you can't catch a redfish, you got a problem. Trout have definitely been more finicky. We still have very low salinity over here between what's coming down the intercoastal, what's coming out of Perdido Bay. Very, very heavy tannic, fresh water. But if you wait until that kind of, the peak of the incoming tide, when you start getting some real high salinity water through, Bayou St. John, the lower part of the intercoastal over here, where it kind of crosses the Inner-Arity Point, and then down on like the east end of Ono Island and Inner-Arity, the trout will push up on those grass beds, and it's mostly been a middle of the day to afternoon bite. That's been the best part about it. You don't need to get up super early. If anything, wait a little while and wait till that clean water pushes in.
My kind of fishing.
Considering we're just now, it's perfect. But considering we're coming off this neat tide, you're gonna have a little bit of a shift in the tides as we work through the week. But the redfish in particular, they've been out there biting most of the day. But from like the last 2 days, I've been on the skiff working grass beds down there to the east, like between Alabama and Florida waters, and the redfish bite has probably peaked for me between 1 in the afternoon and dark. So, you can get out there just about whatever time you want and have shots on fish. But the reds, the trout, if you work some of those drops, there's definitely some really nice flounder on them. I've seen a lot of black drum. I've started seeing sheep's head coming onto the flat, and there are a ton of sharks. So it's kind of, a lot of places that I'd normally be wade fishing because of the amount of sharks. But I actually, 2 days ago, caught, there was about 6 redfish on the back of a bull shark on the grass beds down on the east end of Ono Island, and actually caught one of those redfish off the back of that bull shark.
That's pretty crazy.
Yep.
Man, this time of year, you're talking about redfish and speckled trout. What are you tying on? What's your go-to? What are you going to have tied on your favorite 3 rods this time of year, talking about those speckled trout and redfish in particular?
And for the trout bite has been good, like pretty shallow around these piers and stuff like that. Sometimes under the docks, especially on a bluebird day like today. Man, I've been going old school quite a bit here lately, putting a weightless Zoom fluke on, either just pearl white or Arkansas shiner.
You talk about the sharks and that kind of stuff or whatever, and you caught that redfish on the back of that shark. I've been fishing on the beach before, and I've seen man rays or whatever, the big cow nose rays, and we've actually caught fish off the back of those because it seems like it may not be every situation, but some situations you'll find it where they follow those fish.
It's like a big turtle. It's going to be like a little ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's like when you see a fish like that, a lot of times people are like, "Oh man, it's so cool," and like focus on that fish. But like,
what's under that fish?
Fisherman, you got to
There's going to be a Kobe on that one.
What's around that?
That's where my head goes. There's going to be a ling on that one.
Yeah, and just it's the same way with offshore, inshore.
Yeah, and you think about a redfish. Redfish, how many redfish have you caught on cut bait in your life? You know what I mean? I mean, they're a scavenger just as much as any other predator. An easy meal is an easy meal. And you think of this big shark, prowling a flat. When he does eat, there's gonna be scraps. There's gonna be little pieces of tissue and other stuff in the water, and that's an easy meal for a redfish if he just hangs with him for a while. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
In that one shark or that one turtle or manta ray could turn a a bad day into a good day, and you have to capitalize on it. When you're on a honey
Absolutely.
hole like that, you got to capitalize.
For sure. Some things like that can make a trip.
Yeah.
So, man, this time of year, you're talking about speckled trout and redfish. What's going to be your top 3 baits that you're going to have on whenever you go out and target these speckled trout and redfish on these grass beds?
So pretty much here lately, as far as I've been bringing the fly rods a lot of days, but I usually keep 2 or 3 spinning rods ready to go. One of them is going to have, just good old school weightless Zoom fluke in either pearl or albino shad or Arkansas shiner, something that's real light and natural. I'm going to rig it on a 3 or 4 offset worm hook, no weight or anything for skipping docks and working over grass beds. Something that you can throw pretty much as recklessly as you want at any structure or any area and know that you're not going to get any kind of, obstructions on it. As far as, another option, topwater. Topwater bite's been outstanding here for the past probably 3-4 weeks. And I'm not talking about just like early morning or late afternoon. I mean, the redfish have been crushing topwater middle of the day. When they get up on those shallow areas or get around some of these piers and stuff, and especially once that tide pushes in and all the bait gets going, I mean, they're getting fired up. They'll crush the topwater lure.
Yep.
Third option, I always have one. If I'm inshore fishing, I'm always going to have one of the lures from Bugs Fishing, the pyramidal bug. It looks like a little blue crab. I'm always going to have one of those on like a medium light spinning rod, 10-pound braid, because when you do find fish holding on structure, especially if they're laid up, they're not real active. And over here in our case, if you can see them in those shallow waters, I can't think of a better thing to present to them because it's very subtle. It kind of breathes a lot in the water, so you don't have to work it real aggressive, which is really good on lazy or lethargic fish. So, but those are 3 things I'm always going to have on a spin rod this time of year.
Those are great tips, man. You mentioned about fishing the docks. I know you guys do a little bit of night stuff over there. Anything there? You guys been doing the night stuff?
Oh man, so our fly fishing club, the Eastern Shore Fly Fishers, we had a little members only dock light tournament Saturday night.
Nice.
That was exhausting. I'd worked 12 hours that day and then launched the skiff after work to fish all night. But I'm trying to remember, there's 7 or 8 teams. I think it was like a total like 20 anglers signed up for it. And man, I was given some grief about it because it's like, all right, dock light tournament on a full moon, in a neat tide. I'm like, who planned this? But I got to say, the bite was actually really good. I fished with a kid named RJ from Mobile, just kind of invited him along. Him and I'd never fished together, but I was just like, hey, if anybody wants to, fish this with me, come on. So, this is fly fishing only, keep in mind, which in my opinion is the best way to fish a dock light anyway.
That's tough.
And I would have to think between RJ and I, we had to have caught at least 60 or 70 speckled trout. Now,
Wow.
I'd say half of those were probably undersized and up to about 18 inches or so. And we caught a few other things, got some really nice big mangrove snapper. Could have had a nice little snapper sandwich. Redfish were noticeably absent on the lights that night for whatever reason, but they were, the next afternoon, once I slept a little bit, got back on the grass beds and there they were again. But man, if you want to just go out right now and just catch some fish, nighttime is definitely the right time. The lights are loaded with trout. And any small bait fish or shrimp imitating lure should get bit. They were definitely feeding heavily on shrimp though. Every light that had, if you came across a dock that had good current sweeping across it, you were seeing little shrimp, hopping out of the water everywhere and hordes of trout chasing them. I mean, it's been pretty action packed on the dock light scene.
And Chris, you talk about fishing the lights at night, and I've done that my whole life since I was a little kid. In Bala
That's fun stuff, man.
We get all the big shrimp boats, and they got to usually catch them. But I swear, man, we fish a light, and like, let's say you fish live shrimp, you'll catch 15 fish on it. And so I don't know if they figure it out, but then like you have to throw like a gulp, or you have to throw something different.
I think they get smart for sure.
It's like
they get smart.
You like if you're fishing one particular light, I mean, you're sure enough you can bump around from light to light and catch them all night if you have enough lights in that area
or enough time to get to all those lights. Yeah.
But it's like we had to change up and then change up and then change up. And I'm thinking, okay, we got live shrimp. We're going to sit here and wear them out all night. But it wasn't like that for me. I don't know if it's like that for y'all or not. But
yeah, I think it's like that for not just dock lights, but just fishing in general. It's just like when you get on a spot and you got triggerfish fired up, you drop down, you catch, several of them, and then and then all of a sudden, they're not biting the same. You're still seeing them on the depth finder.
yeah.
They're still down there.
Right.
But or even mahi when you're bailing them offshore, you'll catch you'll catch X amount and then you notice they get kind of lazy or lethargic or they rush your bait but don't eat it. I think body language is everything. I think those fish, after you catch so many of them and there's that distress signal in the water, I think they start putting 2 and 2 together and realize that, man, ever since them shrimps started raining down
Where'd Jimmy
from the
go?
sky,
Jimmy gone.
yeah, it's like, man, everybody's disappearing here. But then you throw something new into the mix that they haven't seen, and it's just getting that, it's that trigger, that internal trigger in them, reaction strike.
Yeah, and you didn't catch them all because, I mean, if you're fishing light, you can see
you can
them.
see
They
most
come
of
up.
them.
I've seen them come up and check
Yeah, a lot
the
of
bait
time
and
you can
swim
see
away
'em.
from it.
For sure. Super duper small hook, super light leader over here anyways for the lights. That's what I've had success with. Well, Chris, kind of going into the weekend, it's going to be a little bit chillier temperatures. You have any wisdom or kind of pointers for our guys over there on the east side this weekend? What are you going to be keying in on and what are you going to be avoiding?
Well, here's the thing is we got, we're supposed to have some more southeast and east winds, which we all know how an east wind goes.
Yep.
It can be tough to fish. One thing I think a lot of people do backwards, and it's not just this time of year, it's any time of year. When I see that east wind, whereas most people are thinking, where can I hide from that wind? I think of all the points we have over here that get direct impact from that easterly wind. And one thing I think or really anybody who's been inshore fishing for any amount of time knows is that a windblown bank or point is usually a prime spot. Is it annoying to fish? Absolutely. But if you can get set up outside of that windblown bank or windblown point, a lot of time bait is being carried to it. It's also a natural diversion of current. So it's kind of a perfect ambush spot. So I'd say anybody going this weekend, that's going to get out and have to deal with that east wind, focus on banks that are directly impacted by the east wind, the ones that have the chop and the lapping and, all that going on. Those are usually going to be your most action-packed spots.
Man, that's so funny, dude, because we talked to Captain Richard earlier today, and we were talking about, using the wind to your advantage.
How to set up. And
yeah. And one thing that he was saying too is using the wind to your advantage as to be able to fish. But you're fishing an area, you don't think of it's going to be hard to fish it. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be hard to cast into it. It's going to be hard to do all that kind of stuff. But to have those areas that are hard to catch the fish and you actually are able to produce from, that's doing
it's gonna
something.
Be money.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a great point Chris is talking about. And I've the only thing that I can think to relate this to is bass fishing in a big pond. You got a hard north wind, they're going to be on that south bank because all the bait's being pushed up against that bank.
Yep, everything's being driven. And, it's annoying because obviously the boat, kayak, whatever you're in is bouncing around a little more because of the wind, but you actually have the wind at your back. You know what I mean? So when you're making your cast, you're going to be accurate with your cast. You're not having to throw into the wind. You're just having to deal with the positioning. That's where you kind of get, it can be a little bit more complicated is getting the right position with that wind at your back, keeping the right distance and everything else. But if you can get set up, and fish those windblown areas, that's usually where I'm going to produce the best.
That makes great sense, man. That's a great report, Chris. We always appreciate you giving your report. And we always enjoy hearing your wisdom, man. Thanks for sharing it with our listeners. If folks want to come by Sam's and or give you a shout, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
You can always, you can always come by the store at 27122 Canal Road in Orange Beach. We're open 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Or just give me a call on the phone at 251-981-4245. Awesome,
buddy. I'll see you Saturday. I come get my rod you've been hoarding from me.
Well, hopefully we can break it in that morning. We'll see what the weather does. But if the weather's not too bad, we'll go hit some of those redfish on those flats.
I hope we can, man. I appreciate the report, and we look forward to hearing from you next time, buddy. Be safe out there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's always good to hear from Chris Vecsey over at Sam's Bait and Tackle in Orange Beach, Alabama. You guys take a quick break and check out a few of this week's great sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks. Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks are proud to be your metal roofing headquarters for over 40 years. Save time and money by buying from the most reliable manufacturer on the Gulf Coast. Buy it today, pick it up today. They offer 20 Sherwin-Williams colors to choose from and have a 40-year warranty. Baker Metal and Dixie Supply, 2 names, same great service. With the addition of their new store in Cantonment, Florida, they now have 8 locations to serve you. Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks, your metal roofing headquarters. All right, Captain King, we got to do What Did You Learn before we get out of here today, man. What'd you pick up from today's show? A lot of good information flying around, man. We went from inshore to way offshore. We covered a lot of water, so to speak.
Ooh, Papa, there's a lot of things I learned today. I ain't gonna lie to you.
What'd you pick up? What stuck out to you most?
The most thing for me as an offshore guy was definitely, from my offshore segment, for first thing, your fish is only as good as your sides and your fishing is only as good as your baits. So when we were talking to on an offshore segment, He talked about using that light in that live well to keep our baits alive.
That interests me for sure.
Yeah,
I'll get
I've
it.
never heard about that.
Makes sense though. If you
It-
can't see where you're swimming, you're going to run into walls and stuff.
Yeah. And
This
so,
might sound elementary, but it's not.
yeah, and that's something that we're definitely going to try. Man, we've had trouble with pogies, and I wonder if it works with different baits across the spectrum too.
Why wouldn't it?
But especially with them sardines, like he was talking about, which is a killer bait
Oh, yeah.
for every kind of species you're fishing for.
Crack.
Yeah, and like he said, to get out there and they all die or whatever. Like we're gonna, I want to try that. And the second thing that really hits me pretty heavy is most people go to a spot and they pull up to it and they start fishing on it. Well, you should do your homework and make circles around the spot, figure out where the fish are. Are they on the upcurrent side, down current, upwind, whatever the case may be,
No doubt.
as far as offshore, and figure that out. But
Find
man,
kind of that eco mass and
yeah, it's
go
fine.
at it that
It's
way
fine
instead of
as-
just dropping out where your numbers are.
It's fine.
Is that what you mean?
The spot within the spot is what you're looking
spot within the spot. That could be a t-shirt. Maybe
Yeah.
Put that on a hat.
for. Absolutely.
I like it.
Absolutely.
Though,
What'd you learn today, Butch?
man, a lot of good information. Like we said, we covered inshore to offshore, went way offshore. Captain DeLynn's a wealth of knowledge as far as offshore. So are you as well. Really enjoyed you being on here with me today. Definitely what you just said stuck out to me as well. Not even reefs like on the bottom, like even like a rig. If you're pulling up to a rig, circle that thing and make sure you're dropping down where the fish are. And they may not be close enough to where they're going to wreck you, get you in that rig. They might be a little bit off of it.
And every day is going to be different.
Every
too.
day is going to be different.
And you just have to do your homework before you fish, while you're fishing, and after you get done fishing.
No doubt. That's a great thing too. And also Chris Vecsey over there was talking about, how I was kind of relating it to a bass pond, but that makes sense. Like a direct impact bank, all that bait's going to be pushed up there. And you would think those ambush feeders are going to be right there mopping that stuff up.
Yeah, and just because the spot may be hard to fish doesn't mean you shouldn't be fishing.
That's right.
You
Set
know?
it up somewhere where you can fish it properly.
Yeah, and because you're fishing properly and it's hard to fish, that means you're gonna be away from all the pressure.
That's
and
true.
You may get luckier than other people that day.
That's a fact, man. All right, guys, that wraps up another great segment. Let's take a quick break and check out a few more of this week's great sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Test Calibration. Is your diesel engine showing signs of low pressure or excessive engine smoke? If so, you may be in need of a repair to your diesel fuel injection system. Test Calibration has been selling and servicing diesel turbochargers and fuel injection systems since 1976 and are up to date with all the latest diesel technology. No matter if you're running a diesel in your boat, tractor, or truck, Test Calibration can help you. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratindieselandturbo.com. And also brought to you by National Land Realty.
If you're in the market to sell your land, check out the fastest growing, most innovative land brokerage in the country. With the largest online presence in the industry, the bottom line is when you market your land through National Land Realty, the right buyers will know your land is for sale. Contact your Emerald Coast National Land agent. That's me, Joe Baya, at jbaya@nationalland.com, or call me at 850-296-7098.
Well, man, I appreciate you co-hosting with me today. I really enjoyed it. We covered a lot of great questions. Really enjoyed you integrating yourself into the report. It's always good to hear from you on the other side too, but you're always on the way in or on the way out. So it's good to sit down and talk fishing with you today, man. Enjoyed it. If folks want to book a trip with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Man, they can always look at that website, Cap Mike's Online, and look at my schedule right there, or they can call that phone number and book directly, 861-5302, and we'll be there.
Appreciate it, man. Talk to you next time, buddy.
Thank you, Butch. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. You guys, please make sure and subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to text the word fishing to 314-665-1767 to get that free AFCO sun protection mask promo code, and also to be added to our email list. And we'll send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them. Be safe out there. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Richardoni Family Dentistry. You're going to need a good dentist, so you may as well make an appointment with fellow angler Josh Richardoni. Call today to book an appointment at 251-342-6672. Also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report brought to you by me, Angelo Di Paola, The Coastal Connection. Find us online at thecoastalconnection.com.
And also brought to you by L&M Marine. L&M Marine has something for everyone, from small hunting boats, pontoons, as well as bigger bay hybrid boats for the hardcore angler. Go visit them at 34600 Highway 59 in Stapleton, Alabama, or call 251-937-1380. And also brought to you by the Alabama Marine Resources Division. The Alabama Marine Resources Division reminds all recreational anglers that gray triggerfish, greater amberjack, or red snapper must be reported through Snapper Check prior to landing the fish in Alabama. For more information about Snapper Check, please visit outdooralabama.com. And also brought to you by United Bank. United Bank supports our farmers with financial products and services designed specifically for agribusiness. All loans subject to credit approval, equal housing opportunity lender, member FDIC. And also brought to you by Admiral Shellfish. Admiral oysters are available by the dozen at Bon Secours Fisheries, Inc. in Bon Secours, Alabama. From a simple, nutrient-dense appetizer at home or a shucking party with friends, Admiral oysters will steal the show. Call 251-949-7411 for pricing and availability. Follow their adventures on Instagram at Admiral Shellfish Co. And also, Photonus Defense, simply the best-in-class night vision systems ever built. Contact them at photonusdefense.com to learn more. Photonus Defense, masters of darkness. And also, AFTCO, family-owned and operated AFTCO fishing apparel and tackle are designed to handle the harshest elements and Hookah weather any day on the water. From cold tournament mornings to the humid summers of Florida, visit aftco.com, that's AFTCO.com, for on-the-water performance gear.